Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, and it's time for my weekend report. Yes, my weekend report, when I talk about the reading that I've done during the week, and maybe some other channel shenanigans that might have happened, and any other little updates that I might need to update you about. This week has been exceedingly busy, and rather odd. So I'll probably be doing these weekend updates at least as long as I am doing the Read What You Own challenge, which, as it turns out, is going to be forever. So last week I was doing the 100 book challenge, where I read 100 books before I buy any new ones. And now this week it has expanded to the 500 book challenge before I read any, or before I buy any new ones. It just happened that way. Anyway, so it's been an interesting week and very busy. I've been working a lot this week, even more than usual. This upcoming week shouldn't be as busy, but this past week, a little crazy. So I was only able to read a teensy tiny bit of Varney. So I'm continuing to read Varney the Vampire, and I'm actually reading it a lot like the Victorian English people did when they read Varney the Vampire in little snippets, in little 18-page pamphlets once a week. So I am reading just a little bit here and there of Varney. I read a lot more Varney last week than I did this week. Part of that is because I didn't have a lot of time this week, but part of that was because I was enjoying this book so much. This is The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, which I read for two projects. One is the vintage science fiction project that I've got going on, and the other is New Worlds November. This past week was classic science fiction. That was the theme for the week, classic science fiction. And this book came out when? It was 1953? Well, it's copyright 1951. No. It's copyright 1951 by Galaxy Publishing Corporation. So I guess that's when it showed up in Galaxy magazine. In 1953, it was copyrighted by Alfred Bester. That's when I assume it came out in book form. Really interesting novel. This classic science fiction novel, which I had read once before, a number of years ago, and it's really interesting. It's very much a product of its time in a lot of ways. This shows up mostly in the very peculiar romantic relationship that shows up in this book. You'll notice very often in science fiction from the 50s that it's very much the 1950s in the future, as far as men and women's relations and place in society and all of that. So that part of the book and the romantic relationship was really odd in this. It was peculiar. But in other ways, this book was actually kind of ahead of its time, and it was very action-packed about this guy in the future who wants to commit the perfect murder, but he has to do it in a world where the police have ESP. Yeah, they could read your mind, depending on how powerful an esper they are. And so he has to figure out a way to get around that. So that's interesting. The premise was interesting. And a really excellent story. So it deserves the acclaim that it has received. It is a little melodramatic very often. I pictured all of these characters overacting much of the time. But great book. Really enjoyed it. I think I liked it even more this time than the first time I read it. I certainly, I think, appreciated it a good deal more. Alfred Bester didn't write that much, actually. I think he spent many years as an editor. But what he did write, it was pretty much always worth reading, and this definitely is. So yeah, if you haven't read The Demolished Man and you're interested in science fiction, check it out. I highly recommend it. This was actually the only book that I finished this week because I was so busy, and it is not a long book, which shows you just how busy I was. So this is the second book I've read for the Read What You Own challenge. So, you know, only 488 books to go. Yeah, that's it. That's no problem. No problem. No problem at all. So yeah, I'm actually not the only person doing the 500 book adamantium tier for the Read What You Own challenge. David Wiley, the fantastic David Wiley, the amazing David Wiley, is also doing it. And so which one of us will fail first? Or will we both manage to read 500 books before we buy any new ones? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. We'll see. So I started another book. I started reading this one. I'm not that far into it. This is Science Fiction Thinking Machines, an anthology edited by Groff Conklin, who was a great anthologist of science fiction. He did a bunch of science fiction anthologies. He edited a bunch of them, and I have a lot of them in the vault of ancient science fiction down below the manor. I've got a ton of Groff Conklin's great anthologies. I started this one because this upcoming week, the final week of New World's November, although the month goes on a little bit after this week, but the final week, the theme is robots or AI, artificial intelligence, which is what Thinking Machines is all about. This is an anthology of stories about robots and thinking machines. And again, this one is very, very old. When was this book published? It was published in 1954 originally. So this is from 1954. Only read a few stories in it. It starts off with Isaac Asimov's Robbie, which is not his best robot story. It's really not that great, actually, but he is Isaac Asimov. I would have chosen a different story, but okay, Robbie. But so far, it's been an interesting anthology, and I will finish this up this week, no problem. And I'm really enjoying it. It's always interesting to see what people's ideas of the future was like in the past, particularly their ideas of artificial intelligence and what computers might be like and robots, and how these ideas were so far from the mark. They certainly could never have imagined the type of artificial intelligence that we carry around in our pockets all the time. It's an interesting book. It's a lot of fun and a great way to close out New World's November. So I just have to figure out what I'm going to read after this. There are a couple of contenders, and one of them is Different Seasons by Stephen King, which would be for my Read Every Book by Stephen King challenge. Now, the question has been asked, since I'm doing this whole 500 book thing instead of the 100 book thing, do you have every book by Stephen King? No, I don't. I have enough books to read his books in order up until the late 90s. I have a lot of Stephen King books, actually, because I've been buying them mostly on the Kindle, although I do have a lot of physical copies as well. I've been buying them for the project. I just haven't been reading these very fast. So there's going to come a point where I'm going to have to just read what I have and, 6 years later buy the other ones, or heaven forbid, actually go to the library and get some Stephen King books so I can continue the project, which will kind of suck in a way because I won't own those books. I'll just be borrowing them, so they won't count for the read what you own challenge because I won't own them. But at least I'll be continuing on with the Stephen King read every book by challenge. So we'll see how it goes. So this is a strong contender, but I'm very tempted just to skip ahead and start my Edgar Rice Burroughs deep dive early, and just start early with this book, which is a book about Edgar Rice Burroughs, Master of Adventure, about his work, and then the biography I have about Edgar Rice Burroughs. Just read those two, and then just start reading Edgar Rice Burroughs books a month early. And I was thinking of doing that because I would really like to read everything Burroughs by May, so I can take part in Horror Mayhem, which is another great reading event that was created by the Bookish Bryants, who created New Worlds November. I forgot to tell you that I'm going to leave links to all my fantastic co-hosts for New Worlds November down below. But I would like to take part in Horror Mayhem too, which means I would like to just have everything Burroughs read by then. But we'll see. So I might just start this early. That's a strong possibility. So yeah, that's what I've been reading. That's the only really interesting thing that happened on the channel last week was the 500 book challenge thing, which was just a crazy idea I was thinking about. It's like, what would that be like? And then it turns out I'm doing it now, so we'll see. But, it'll be fine. I don't need to buy books ever. Ever. Never. I never have to, because I've got thousands of books. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine. No problem. No problem. Okay, guys. That's all I have for you today. I will catch you tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. It might actually be a tag, which is a weird thing to do on a Sunday, but it might be, because there are a couple tags I want to do. Yeah, we'll see. I'll figure it out. And I will see you next time. Hey, little one, I hear that Sterling Reads is also going to do the 500 book challenge now. It's madness. It's madness, little one. What have I done?